Welcome to Fast Keto. I'm your host, Ketogenic Girl.
Did you know that you actually have the option to either be a sugar burner or a fat burner? It's called having a metabolic advantage. You can actually burn your own stored body fat for fuel. On this show, we talk about ketogenesis, fasting, biohacking, all with the goal of optimal body composition for longevity and having the highest possible quality of life. I hope you enjoy these interviews and solo casts that I present to you, all with this goal in mind.
Hey guys, welcome back to Fast Keto. This episode is all about strategies to help with intermittent fasting, to reduce your hunger and enjoy keto and get better results. We're going to talk about a couple of really cool topics and tools that I have found really helpful in doing a keto diet for myself. We're going to talk about size and plate size and the differences in plate sizing and how it can help you with portion control and figuring out the right portions. And we're also going to talk about seasoning your food and how that can affect appetite and how all of that is connected back to intermittent fasting. So I hope you guys enjoy today's episode on this topic.
Now, with that goal of having optimal quality of life in mind, and I define quality of life by the absolute amount of joy that you feel experiencing life, I created something called the 20-Day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. It's the best product that I could possibly create in order to help as many people as possible try keto out for themselves, get into nutritional ketosis or ketogenesis, and become fat-fueled. When you become fat-fueled, you transition out of that mode of being a sugar burner to being a fat burner, and all these incredible things happen. The first one is you start to burn your own stored body fat for fuel. Now, that's great because a lot of us want to have optimal body composition, less body fat, more muscle, stronger muscle and bone mass. But even if you're not looking to lose fat on your body, even if you're looking just to gain muscle or be strong as you continue to go through life, building muscle and strong bones, keto also helps with that. It's muscle sparing. So whether you're in it for weight loss, fat loss, optimizing your body composition, or just improving your overall energy, your mood, your health, I know I personally have never been happier in my entire life or feeling better in my body. And so much of that comes from being at my optimal goal. I have the highest quality of life for myself that I could have ever imagined because I'm at my ideal body composition. I am living my best life in this body and I'm making the most of being in this body. So that's why I created the 20-day challenge, and it's a program that comes with my meal plans, which are 4 weeks, about 28 days of meal plans. And in there you have shopping lists, full guide to getting into ketosis, testing for ketosis, which is optional if you want to do that. But the coolest thing about it is it also comes with my unlimited support and coaching. So I added this in after I had first created the program because I realized that so many of us have questions when we're starting out a brand new way of life, a new lifestyle. Not only do we have lots of questions, but we also need to have a lot of support. And so I created the 20-day challenge because we have a community in there of others who've done the program already, who've gone through it and love being there, love helping out and supporting other people who are joining. And then I'm also there answering your common questions, answering anything that comes to mind while you're trying this out. Do you want to substitute something in the meal plan for something else? Do you want to find a recipe for a certain specific event? Do you want to find what my recommendations would be for ordering off a menu at a certain restaurant? I'm there to help guide you. I know some of these are different kinds of requests, but I'm there to support you in any kind of question that you have doing keto. I love to provide explanations of how different processes work in the body, why ketogenesis works. I love to share any kind of insight and information that I can. And I'm there to be your guide, to be your support. Studies have shown that we get to our goals so much more easily and faster when we have a guide, when we have a friend, a coach, a support person, keeping us accountable, keeping us motivated, excited. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm excited to help you get to your goals, get to your best health, because I have never been happier living and enjoying my life and being in my body. I've never had so much body confidence, so much strength, so much zest and excitement for life. And I love helping people experience that for themselves too. You can see dozens and dozens of success stories posted on my different feeds on Instagram, on Ketogenic Girl. There's a section called Success Stories and Testimonials, and you can read through so many different successes that people have had doing the challenge. So I would love to have you join the challenge. Give it a try. There are other options too that can be added on and layered on during the program. I have my phase 2 higher protein plans if you're looking to build more muscle after you've started keto with the 28-day ones. I have build your day ones, no cook plans. I have vegetarian ones. I have all kinds of different versions and add-ons for later on if you decide that you are continuing at this. But what have you got to lose other than stored body fat? Use it for fuel. Optimize your health and your body composition today, and go check out the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge at ketogenicgirl.com. Now, onto our show. All right, so to start things off, I want to talk about two things first: seasoning your food less and plate sizing. So let's first talk about plate sizing. I did a post a few months back about how the size of our plates has actually changed over the years. And I find this fascinating because our average plate, a dinner plate, used to be around anywhere from 6 to 9 inches in diameter. And these days, the average dinner plate size is about 9 to 11 inches. That's a lot bigger. And then if you think of restaurant plates, those are anywhere from, 11, 13 inches, 15 inches, 16 inches, with these massive dinner plates that we get at restaurants. And I think it's part of the reason why it's so fun to go out to eat. You get this massive plate of food, especially if you live in North America, you know what I'm talking about. Plates have just gotten bigger and bigger, and you don't realize it. And eventually that large plate size really just becomes the new norm, and we start expanding the size of our plates at home too. Now, why is this important? The reason this is important is because there's something to habit and satisfaction and being part of the clean plate club. We learn to be good little girls and good little boys and clean our plates. I know that was something huge in my house growing up. I always had to have a clean plate, and feeling guilty if I don't clean the plate fully, and just making sure that, because there are people in the world who are not lucky enough or fortunate enough to have food, means that I need to eat everything on my plate and not be ungrateful. But if you are always eating off a massive plate and filling that plate full of food and then not feeling, able to just eat to fullness, there's something about the psychology behind that plate size and about wanting also to have our plates to be full of food. So if it's a huge plate of food, we want it to be full. We don't want any spaces on it. I know if I get a plate at a buffet, which I was doing last week in Africa on the Mercy ships, I got a plate and I would fill it with food. But one thing I noticed while I was there is that the size of the plates there were much more closer to 6 or 7 inches, maybe 8 inches. It was a much smaller plate size, and that when I filled my plate with food, it got full pretty quickly. And I know that older me would have been like, well, that's annoying. I need to get a bigger plate, or maybe go back for a second serving. But there's something to that smaller plate size where you feel like you've really filled your plate and it's smaller. It's easier to do. And so I've been doing this since I first did that post a few months ago, and starting to use smaller dishware and smaller plates in order to achieve the same feeling of satisfaction. Because one thing with keto and low carb is that it's eating a lot of real nutrient dense foods. And the very fact that it's nutrient dense and often like fat, energy dense, means that you're getting more bang for your buck with smaller amounts. But that means that the size of food is actually smaller. And when you're eating a high carb, low fat, sort of moderate to low protein diet, the standard American diet, usually that's a lot of volume. And we associate that volume with fullness, with having a large volume of food as being a pleasurable eating experience, being something exciting, and being something that's going to fill us up. For sure, if there's tons of volume, then I'm not going to go hungry. I'm going to be full. But let me tell you, I am more full now eating on small plates and very small portions of very nutrient dense and energy dense food than I ever was eating sometimes double servings of giant salads. I would make these salads that had beets and goat cheese and amazing poppy seed dressing and shredded carrots and sprouts, and they had layers to them, and tomatoes and all this incredible color and variety. I was trying to create the most appetizing, palatable, delicious, sensational, long-lasting eating experience that I could. And I now realize that, being vegetarian for 17 years and doing a high carb diet, that I was really deficient in protein and healthy fats. And that's one of the reasons I was always trying to create these, voluminous meals. My body was really trying to achieve fullness. And it's so ironic that we equate obesity or having, extra fat or energy on the body or in excess as being a problem of too much food, but really it is this form of nutrient deficiency, of nutrient starvation. And it's just very ironic that it manifests as, corpulence, as a bigger body, when really, we normally equate lack of nutrients or nutrient starvation with someone who's underweight. But someone who is also very obese or overweight can be quite nutrient deficient. And that's one of the reasons why all of this energy is being stockpiled on the body, because it's a way out of survival to get nutrient needs met, is by eating more, eating as much volume as possible when you're eating the wrong macronutrients. So when you prioritize carbohydrates, which are the only non-essential macronutrient to our biology, when you prioritize that as your main way of filling your plate, as the standard American diet is anywhere between 200 up to 400 grams of carb per day. Most people would settle in around 200 to 300 grams of carbohydrate per day, and that's someone who's kind of eating more healthy and eating minimally processed foods. But it can range quite a bit up to higher amounts of carbohydrate, but also ultra processed food, not so processed like a salad, up to very processed foods, food-like products, and foods that really have minimal nutrients, but they taste fantastic. They're hyper palatable, so they set off fireworks in our brains with all these neuroexcitatory compounds like MSG, monosodium glutamate, and all these, all this sugar, and it creates this rush and, such an exciting and, tantalizing, pleasurable experience eating these kinds of food-like products. And yet there's very little actual nutrition in that. There's very little actual nutrition in terms of what the body actually needs. And the body actually needs essential amino acids and essential fatty acids, and we can only get those from eating whole protein sources and whole sources of healthy fats. So in order to flip this model and prioritize protein and healthy fats, that's really what we do on a ketogenic diet, is prioritize protein and healthy fats. You prioritize real food that is minimally processed so that you access nutrient density and you get the most amount of nutrients and the most amount of healthy fats that your body needs, because we have lost the enzymes over the years that are cofactors in so many of our physiological mechanisms that we need to get these essential amino acids from external sources. Our bodies cannot make them on their own, so we have to get them from external sources. That's why Protein is the most important macronutrient. We have to get it every day. And healthy fats, which have essential fatty acids in them, we also need to get them from external sources. And protein and fat are what our body is made up of. If you look at what most of our body is made out of, it's made out of protein, it's made out of fat, it's made out of bone, muscle, and a lot of fat. And some of our cell membranes do have carbohydrates in them in the form of, there's cellular membranes will have a carbohydrate in them, but for the most part our bodies are made up of protein. Protein is also in bone, it's in muscle, and fat. A lot of our brain is made out of fat, and that's why these are the most essential macronutrients. So basing our plate around the only macronutrient that's non-essential and filling it up full of those non-essentials, then adding in some of the essential macronutrients, in my opinion, is not the best way to maximize your body's access to nutrients. And it's not the best way to enable your body to get as healthy as possible and support optimal health, because it's upside down. Keto really is the opposite of what I did for so many years, and what so many people I speak to, they're like, this is the complete opposite of everything I was taught, because you're flipping that food pyramid upside down and you're putting at the bottom what you should be basing your plate around. There is healthy protein and healthy fats, and you can do that really easily on a small plate and a small bowl. And doing that and working with smaller plates, serving sizes, smaller bowls, I love to use little ramekins, smaller dishes. I can clean my plate and feel good about it. I can clean that bowl. I can be part of the clean plate club without wasting food and without needing to fill these massive plates full of carbohydrates that are not providing me with what I need. The other really key thing is protein and fat are the most satiating macronutrients. They enable us to feel full for the longest because of hormonal function. So hunger hormone is ghrelin, our fullness hormone is leptin, and we really need those hormones to be functioning really well. Providing the body with a lot of protein and healthy fats enables our body to make these hormones from those building blocks, but it also enables the communication between hormones to happen really well. So hormones are basically signaling molecules, and they are endocrine, so they signal to each other. Ketones are actually signaling molecules as well, which is fascinating, but we'll save that for another podcast entirely because it is so deeply fascinating. But our hormones communicate information to our body and to cells, and we need protein and fats in order to make those hormones. But once those hormones are made, we also need them to be able to function well. When there's a lot of inflammation in the body, those hormones can't function as well, they can't communicate as well because the signals are not being received as optimally because of inflammation. So the messaging from leptin is the hormone that tells the body, I'm full, I don't need any more food. That messaging and that signaling gets disrupted because of inflammation in the body. And inflammation can be caused by sugar, it can be caused by a lot of toxic inflammatory vegetable and seed oils, a lot of hyper-processed food-like products. And so when we start eating more real food and more whole foods, single ingredient foods, we really start to lower inflammation in the body. And dairy also can cause inflammation in some people. Gluten can cause inflammation in some people. So reducing grains and dairy as well as hyper-processed foods and sugar-containing foods can really make a huge difference in bringing inflammation down so that our hormone signaling can function optimally, and our brain can receive the signal of leptin and be very leptin sensitive and know that we're actually full and we have all of our nutrient needs met, as opposed to when that signaling is interrupted. And I know I struggled for so many years just being able to know when I was full. And I remember my husband we'd be eating dinner and he'd get even 3/4, to done his dinner and be like, oh, I'm full. And I was like, what do you mean full? Like, I can't even access that word, that feeling. I have no idea what that means. Like, he would finish his whole plate and I would finish his potatoes. I mean, there was no sense of fullness for me ever because I was so focused on eating a high carb diet, and my body was just trying to get the protein and fat that it needed
And in order to do that, in order to get those nutrients, it just maximizes volume through carbohydrates in order to get those nutrient needs met. And for decades, I struggled with not ever feeling full, being obsessed with food, being obsessed with what I was going to eat and how I was going to get food. And it totally consumed my life. And I can say that I was living to eat because I wasn't getting my nutrient needs met. And now I understand why that was happening, why I was having cravings that I couldn't regulate or control, why I was always wanting to eat or thinking about food and trying to, get all the lowest calorie foods, the non-fat lattes and the sugar-free this and that. It was my body was just trying to get nutrients. And when your body needs nutrients, it won't let you think about anything other than eating because it's trying to keep you alive. If you're a regular listener of this podcast, you know that the keto diet is one of the best ways to lose weight and burn fat. But like all diets and lifestyle, sometimes it can be harder to stick to. One of the hidden secrets out there is eMeals, which is an app that helps you with the keto diet. If you start today, you can get 30% off by using their code ketogenic at emeals.com/keto. They have recipes that are amazing and they show up every week on your phone. With a click, you can get all the ingredients delivered to your door. eMeals helps you save time and money, and I highly recommend them for anyone on the keto diet who has a busy lifestyle and finds sticking to this a little bit more challenging. You can use the code ketogenic at emeals.com/keto and get started today with 30% off using that code. Trust me, you guys will love it. So it's really revolutionary when you start to build your plate and prioritize the essential macronutrients that your body starts to feel full much more rapidly. You're receiving more leptin, you're more leptin sensitive, so you feel full faster and longer. And your ghrelin, your hunger hormone, is suppressed for longer because just that hormonal function is being optimized in your body. And you're able to make those hormones, you're able to signal and to receive those signals much better when you prioritize those macronutrients. So I really love this concept of being mindful of the size of our plates and the size of plates that we use, and that eating real nutrient-dense foods may mean that sometimes your plate is smaller and your portions are smaller, but it doesn't mean you're going to be hungry because you're actually giving your body the essentials that it needs, and that is going to enable hormones to signal properly so that you don't feel hungry and you will not be consumed with eating food. And that's why so many people start to intermittent fast very naturally, very organically when they go low carb and keto, because they find that they are so well nourished that sometimes they have to remind themselves, that it's time to eat because the body is receiving what it wants. And it's such an unusual thing compared to always thinking about eating and always knowing what you're going to have. And it's really such a huge contrast. And anyone who has been in that situation knows how time consuming it can be to have your entire life just consumed with consuming, just consumed with eating, and to be living to eat as opposed to eating to live, which is something that it really is revolutionary, just to be eating food so that you can live and you can get on with your life, you can do what you want to do in life, and you can live your life to the fullest. So I think that choosing smaller dishware, choosing smaller plates is something neat. Now, the other part of that is seasoning your food less. So I grew up in Asia, and my mother is an amazing chef, and she always made incredible food that was so tantalizing, so delicious, so tasty, and she's incredible at blending flavors, and I learned so much about food and cooking from her. One of the things that's so great about Asian cooking is that it incorporates, so many different flavors and spices, and you have that salty, sour, spicy, sweet, you have, that umami, all of these different flavors, and it's very enjoyable to eat in this way. However, one of the things with hyperpalatability is that humans are the only beings on this planet that hyper season our food. We try to make it as tasty and delicious as possible. And a lot of that comes from restaurant culture and eating out. The job of a business, of any restaurant, is to get customers and have those customers keep
coming back. And it's the same thing with any food product. If you create a food product, you have to make it as delicious as possible, and you have to make it as cheaply as possible. It's the same for food products and for restaurants. And so when we have a culture where people are eating out all the time because it's convenient, it's fast and efficient, and we don't have time to make food at home, then all of this food becomes so hyper palatable that eating plain food is like boring. It's just so dull and boring, or that's what I thought for so many years. And after I quit sweeteners a couple of years ago, this was so massive for me because it really helped propel resetting my palate more to savory foods. But the other thing that I've really noticed is that in terms of eating instinctively and eating intuitively and connecting with my body and trusting my body that it's going to tell me when it needs nutrients and it's hungry, and it's also going to not bother me with feelings or thoughts of hunger when it is well fed, there's this relationship that you build with your body, connect with your body. And one of the ways that I've found this really helpful is not seasoning my food and not adding so many sauces and seasonings and things to it. And this may not be a big thing for you. Maybe you grew up in a household where the food that you ate was always very plain. I grew up in a household where everything we ate was extremely decadent, delicious, and every meal was just amazing. And I'm so lucky that I grew up with that kind of environment. But at the same time, it made food being addictive for me, something that was part of my life and my lifestyle, because the more tasty and delicious food is, the more it can be a relief from other things in life, the more it can be kind of a soothing thing. It can be a coping mechanism to go to food, to experience the pleasure, to get distracted from anything, uncomfortable feelings or things in your life that you don't want to face or you want to avoid. And food can be, on that level, it can really stimulate dopamine too. Sugar is known to do that. And I know that a lot of the food that we ate had a lot of sugar in it. And so my brain really made that association between dopamine and eating food. And it's not a far, difficult thing that it did that. It's very natural that it did that. But what I have discovered for myself is that if I'm really hungry, food tastes amazing with nothing on it. And when I'm full, it just doesn't taste that good anymore. And if I add something to it, if I add a sauce to it or some seasoning or something, it tastes good again. But in that moment, I'm kind of losing a little bit of that connection with my body's instinctive signals, because we weren't meant to be adding all these incredibly delicious sauces and things all the time to our food. We wouldn't have had this sophistication of being able to make foods so insanely delicious. And what I love about this is that, just using, maybe I use sea salt flakes and sodium. I definitely season my food with sodium, pepper. Sometimes I've been using it less and less, but I always add sodium to my food because our bodies need sodium so much, especially on low sodium diet like keto. And I add sodium to my food. Sometimes I'll add a little bit of mustard, but I really try to not add anything and just eat the food and taste it for what it is. And I found that quitting sweeteners has also helped me do this and really receive food for what it is and how delicious it is. And it unlocks all these flavors I didn't even know existed. It unlocks so much flavor, but it also, most importantly, tells you when you're hungry and when you're not. And this is one thing I learned from Kelly Hogan, who I had the pleasure of having her on my show. I'm going to have her back on sometime soon. But Kelly had this great quote: "Hunger is the best sauce." And I don't know if that's her quote or she heard it somewhere. I think she said she heard it somewhere. I'll have to find the source or author of it. But I have lived by that for a while now, and it is so, so true. I mean, when you are properly hungry, plain eggs taste divine. Anything you eat tastes incredible because it was meant to. When you are full, you find that same food doesn't really taste that good because it's plain. It doesn't have all these stimulating things. MSG is an excitotoxin. It creates all this neural excitement in our brain that is one of the reasons that we like it so much.
So that finally brings me to my last part of today's podcast, which is all about portion control and intermittent fasting on keto. And the first 2 points kind of tie into those because one of the cool things that happens when people do keto is they start to notice that intermittent fasting kind of just happens as this natural organic process because you are really well nourished. The body is really well nourished from eating the essential nutrients that the body needs. And so fasting just starts to happen. It's not something that you have to force or you have to, set a time. Okay, I'm going to put a timer. Some of those things could help, but it just starts to happen really naturally, really organically for most people, where they'll notice that it's been 4 or 5 hours and you haven't had anything to snack on or nibble on or drink between your last meal and that one. And that's a whole lot of time where the body is just in the post-absorptive state and in the absorptive state. And that's a great state for the body to be in, where glucagon is dominant and your primary fuel becomes fat. And it's a really natural thing that happens. And sometimes people will notice, that dinner time rolls around and they're still full from lunch. And so they need to hold off for another extra hour or two, or sometimes even wait until the next day to have, another meal because they're just really satisfied. And this is such a bizarre thing to think of, especially if you're accustomed to being on a standard American diet or a high carb diet where you often feel hungry a couple hours after eating a meal because of what happens not only to our blood sugar, which dips and then spikes, but also our hormones, especially ghrelin, are really affected, by protein and fat. They really keep ghrelin at bay and signal leptin and enable our brain to receive those signals from leptin saying that we're full. And the hunger hormone ghrelin is really staved off for a long time, whereas carbohydrates enable us to feel full initially. And then within 2-3 hours, usually there's a big rebound and ghrelin really gets revved and we get quite hungry. So this intermittent fasting is something that just kind of goes really well with keto because it's such a natural organic result of doing a ketogenic diet where you're really prioritizing nutrient dense food. And one of the things that I get and hear from all the time from members of my program and challenge is that my program helped them learn portion control. And portion control is a big part of the equation, especially learning to reframe your mind. And it goes back to, plate sizing and how we're accustomed to these big, huge plates and volume. And when you are eating food that's really not that nutrient dense, you need all this volume in order to get the nutrients. But when you're eating really nutrient dense foods with protein and fat, it's going to be smaller portions that are going to make you full. And at first, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel counterintuitive. You're going to look at the food and be like, there's no way that I'm going to get full from this. And so many people who start my Ketogenic Girl program, the 20-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge, when they start, they'll see a sample day and they're like, no, I can't do that. There's no way that I'll be full from those meals. And I totally get that because I would have thought the same thing. And yet within a week or two, everyone is telling me, like clockwork, I'm so full, I'm struggling to eat the third meal. I mean, that's a huge reversal. And I hear that over and over and over again. I work with thousands of people on my program, and I've seen the same thing happen every time. People are really skeptical, and then they're blown away by how satisfied the body really can be, not only from the nutrient-dense food, but also from this correction that happens with the hormones where ghrelin is not being revved, it's being abated. Leptin is really signaling well to the brain that satiety is happening without having to fill ourselves with all this volume in order to feel that stomach stretch, which then is a kind of a backup signaling mechanism to the brain where the stomach stretches to a point that it tells the brain, this endocrine hormones signal to the brain, stop eating. But that can take a long time, whereas when you're full from just the natural signaling of your body, it's such a cool process. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's discussion all about plate sizing, seasoning your food less, and relating all this back to hormone signaling, correction of hormones, hormone balance, and intermittent fasting and portion control. And all of these different things really go hand in hand, and they also help each other. They reinforce each other, and they work to really helping us feel great, get the results that we want to have, and there's just so many cool things about keto. It just keeps blowing my mind every day. I love that I just have so many cool, interesting things every week to talk about on this podcast. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'd love to hear anything that you took away from this episode. Either leave a comment on Instagram, tweet me at Ketogenic Girl. I would love to hear what your takeaways were. It really means so much to me to hear back from you and hear what you're liking, what you want to hear more of. If you have time, share this episode with someone that you think might enjoy it, or leave me a rating or review. I would love to hear from you and what you think of the show. So until the next episode, I hope you have a fat-filled rest of your week, and bye for now. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here today and tuning in. I would like to invite you to check out the 20-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. A lot of the things that we talked about on today's episode, I find are really solved by doing a ketogenic meal plan like the one that I designed, the 20-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. And a lot of that comes down to having someone already calculate everything for you, having the macros all dialed in for you, having this meal plan with all the portions already outlined for you. It really helps address a lot of the portion control issues, and having everything calculated already really helps with preparation and doing batch prep. A lot of people on the challenge will pick out a day, say on Saturday or Sunday, and they'll meal prep ahead for the week, and they'll pick 2 or 3 days from the plan that they love, and they'll repeat it, such as day 5, which has the burger with my special keto burger sauce, and repeat that. And you can do that as many times as you like, and it really makes preparation and following keto and the meal plans a lot easier, and doing that batch prepping and meal prep on the weekend. And the meal plans also come with a shopping list. They come with a full guide to testing yourself for ketosis. And the best part is they include my support and coaching in our members Facebook group, which is an awesome community. I love being in there, and it really helps so much having other people doing this program with you and alongside, and people who've done it already and successfully reached their goals there to inspire you and to support you. And having that community built in is so important. Our success rates go way, way up when we're doing any kind of diet or lifestyle change when we have a buddy. And I'm here to be your buddy, to be your guide, and help you with your journey, because you can post any questions that you have about keto, about the meal plans, about low carb, and I am there to answer your questions and to support you as you go. And I just think it makes such a big difference to have a coach and a support group and a supportive community around you. So check out the 20-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. Just a word of caution, there is another 20-day keto challenge that's being sold. It is not mine. I only sell my program from ketogenicgirl.com. So if you see a link to that, it's a copycat version that has kind of popped up in the last year. It's also has a similar name, 20-day Ketogenic Challenge. But if you are looking for my program, which comes with my support and coaching, you can only get it from ketogenicgirl.com, and make sure that you are purchasing the one from me, because I have some people who have purchased this other program thinking that it's my program, and the coaching and support is not included because it's not the program that I formulated and that has had so much success. If you want to read and check out some of the success stories, you can go to ketogenicgirl.com and click on testimonials and reviews or success stories, and you can read some of the dozens and dozens of success stories of people who have done the challenge. And if you join the program, you'll get to interact with so many of those people in the group who've had real success and are there to share tips and tricks for making all of this so much easier and so much fun. So check out the 20-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge at ketogenicgirl.com. And until the next episode, I hope you have a fat-filled rest of your day. A few disclaimers. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice, as I am not a qualified healthcare provider. The information presented on this podcast is for educational purposes only. Ketogenic Girl is not qualified to provide medical advice. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to this podcast. Prior to beginning a ketogenic diet, you should undergo a full health screening with your physician to confirm that a keto diet is suitable for you and to rule out any conditions or contraindications that may pose risk or that are incompatible with a ketogenic diet. A keto diet may or may not be appropriate for you if you have any kind of health condition, whether known to you or unknown, so you must consult your physician to find this out. Anyone under the age of 18 should consult with their physician and their parents or legal guardian.